Hey, I'm Javaune Simpson. You're watching Speak Up. Now, for today's topic, we'll actually be speaking about freedom of speech, right? If it is at your life, then you must have heard at least once somebody make mention of the term freedom of speech. And in the minds of many persons, they believe that freedom of speech actually means that you can actually speak, say anything that you feel like saying, including the use of using defamatory statements or using profane language, expletives, all these things in public spaces and not actually face any form of repercussions for this, right? Because they have freedom of speech, as they would say. Now, in my informed opinion, I believe that there is no such thing as freedom of speech, right? Now, you might have certain things that you can actually say, and of course, the law might state that, hey, government cannot take action against you for saying this particular thing or doing this particular thing. Well, let's just keep it at say this particular thing because it's talking about freedom of speech and not, freedom to act or whatever it is, right? So let's just say that the government can't take action against you for saying this particular thing. Now, I believe that in the minds of other persons, they have not received that message, and therefore, persons might actually use your words against you in different spaces or different areas without actually keeping it on record or putting it on record that they're actually doing this particular thing, right? Because if it is that they put it on record, then of course it would be legal because they're actually using your words against you in a different forum or in a different space. But anyways, let's give at least two examples as to why it is that I believe, in my opinion, that there's no such thing as freedom of speech, right? Let's just say, for example, an individual is going 80 in a 50 zone, right? And the police pulls over that individual and says to that individual, hey, you have been going 80 in a 50 zone, or you were caught going 80 in a 50 zone, and therefore I will have to issue you a ticket. And of course, you'll then lose some points of your license because of the speed in which it is that you have been going and all these things. Now, the person might say to the police officer, say, yo, I'm late for work, and you actually keep up the time right, and and right? And of course, the police officer might say to the individual, hey, you have to refrain from using such language, or I'll have to add that you'll be charged for the use of indecent language. Now, the individual might just go on a different rant again, or on a similar rant again, and, and look how much people over this speed, and you not stop them. I want me come in here and stop. Babylon boy. Right? And then the police officer might then say, sir, ma'am, you are going to be charged for the use of indecent language and all these things. Now, in a particular situation like that, an individual might be like, yo, but me have freedom of speech. So why is it that you're going to seek to charge me for saying what is on my mind and expressing myself, right? As I should be able to do freely, right? Then you have other instances. Like, let's say, for example, in a school setting, right? I'm just going to use an example, right? So if there's any Brian out there or anybody by the name of Miss Latibo there, listen, I just randomly decide to use the names, right? And if I'm stuck in a minute to use the names, I then name them I go use, right? So let's just say Brian is in a classroom, right, with other classmates there present, and Miss Latibo there is writing on the board, right? And Mr. Brian himself, little Brian, decides that he's going to allow his intrusive thoughts, whatever the devil tell him to say, he might go say it, right? And decided to say in the midst of the class, Mr. Tibodri is writing on the board, writing the notes on the board, which he's supposed to be taking notes of. Him decided to say, yo, Mr. Tibodri, what you big right? And of course now, the class erupts, right? And even if the class never erupt in laughter, whatever it is, him say what him say, Mr. Tibodri heard him, and therefore she would have taken action to either send him to the Dean of Discipline, for the Dean of Discipline to take, further action against what it is that he would have said. Let's just say in parents or in big auntie or uncle come to school and they're like, yo, so that them call me papa. Yo, me get mad in this, That's no call me for school for. The man that can say what he wants out of him out. Right? No freedom of speech. right? Right? And of course, let's just say it might have been his first offense. Then of course he might get, a detention or demerit or whatever it is, or get a verbal warning from the dean of this. Well, along with a verbal warning from the dean of discipline to say, oh, you're not supposed to do this particular thing again. I don't know, right? Or it might just be something that is even more serious that they might say, oh, we're sending you to the school board because this is not the first time you have actually done something like this, and therefore we're seeking to nip this in the board as soon as possible, and we're now allowing the board to decide what is that will take place with you. Right? And of course, in such instances, persons will create chaos and be like, yo, but the youth have freedom of speech and the youth can say what they want to say, so why them I hold on the youth or whatever it is? Again, this freedom of speech in which you think of, it only exists in the place where you think of it, in your mind, right? You cannot go out there, say whatever it is that you feel like say, especially when it includes use of defamatory statements, right? Saying something when a goes on at all, at least, right? Then you have other instances where persons will hurl expletives in public spaces for no reason, right? It's not as if, well, it's not, let me excuse the behavior in any way, shape, or form, but you have other instances where, let's just say, for the persons that are, used to, psychology and all these things, you might have a Freudian slip, taking place where you're thinking a particular thing and therefore you say a particular thing, especially in a moment where you're not even a think. Say I think, but you're not a think at the same time, if that makes sense, right? For anybody that is majoring in psychology, please correct me if I'm wrong. But what I remember is that if it is that you might have a particular thing in your mind, right? You're not necessarily focusing on it right now, right? But it's somewhere in your subconscious, right? Let's just say you would have heard some songs with expletives earlier in the day or whatever it is, or over a period of time you have been hearing this and now it has developed in your mind, right? And one day, out of the blue, you're upset about something or you're surprised about something and you express such words or you hurl such words out loud, right? That's what they would refer to as Freudian slip. And quite often that may happen, especially in a school setting. Sometimes you hear something they post out some bad word, right? And it's more than likely because it is that they're exposed to this language over and over a period of time. And so they're not able to necessarily control themselves in certain instances, right? And notice I'm saying in certain instances because I've seen where some persons just use the expletive and then pretend like them just as surprised as you, right? So again, in my informed opinion, there's no such thing as freedom of speech, and therefore one has to believe to themselves or seek to think to themselves first, is this really what I want to say? Because after I say it, especially in this day and age where persons are being recorded and all these things, if it is that it goes out there that I said this particular thing, am I okay with the fact that persons will form their own opinions based on a particular clipping that, because sometimes people cut, and especially now when you have AI, persons can cut a particular part of what you say, right? And then mix it up now with something that sounds a bit like you, whatever. All of these things you have to take into consideration, right? And remember that your reputation is going to be out there after you have changed your mind about a particular thing, right? It now might have formulated in somebody's mind that, hey, this is what this person is all about, right? Even though it was just a one-off instance when they decided to tell me something about the say about the big, that type of thing, right? You have been watching Speak Up, and of course, you can look forward to more videos in the future. Much love, God bless, take care.